Hello. How are you? Il neige. Artemis 2. Let us celebrate the beauty of NASA's launch of 4 astronauts who will go around the moon and come back. So given that the furthest that astronauts have been in your lifetime is the space station, they're going 1,000 times farther than anybody in your lifetime. And they will go further into space than any human beings have ever gone. And this is their path. Artemis, as you know, is the warrior goddess, also known as Diana, protector of children, but also mistress of the hunt. Super cool. Not Artemis, as pronounced by people on the news who are obviously idiots. Artemis. Okay, today, a famous quote: digital rebirth, digital renaissance, exercise what works, name game, story core, name game, and the magic as if, story's strengths and its weaknesses. Or story's strengths as its weakness. Political story clarification. So a few of you, I think I mentioned the last time we were talking about, I mentioned something to do with politics, and I said that in Canada, the Liberal Party is the best at politics of any of them. This is in no way me endorsing their policies or anything. That's not what I'm talking about. So just to be clear, I follow the academic way. And the academic way is academics are required to be politically neutral, and I am indeed politically neutral. I take it very seriously. I can comment on whether their stuff works. So let me give you an example. The last 2 premiers of this province, so Notley and Smith, are both excellent at what they do. They're highly skilled, and they're very proficient in political science and language and all that type of stuff. One is left, one is right. It's about whether they can execute. Another example, in New York right now, they have a communist mayor. I have made fun of communism as something that is backwards and no longer applicable based on evidence. Mondami, is his name, ran an excellent campaign, like just one of the best campaigns you could possibly see. And like, first of all, academics are required to remain politically neutral. We live in an age where a lot of academics are not politically neutral, which means they're not academics. They give up that status if they take political positions. We're required to notify the institution if we're going to take we're allowed to take a political position, like if you're going to run for office or something, but you have to openly declare it. Otherwise, you're no longer an academic. And that's what the rules are. It's what it's always been. And so I stick to that type of a rule. Doesn't mean I can't comment on like what people will do. And it's, for me, always going to be that story piece, right? Like story used for political purposes is one of the central aspects of story, and particular nonfiction, or supposedly nonfiction story, right? So that's all. That's all. All I was mentioning there is that when you've got one party that wins almost all of the time, they're clearly sort of doing something really well. And that last campaign was shocking, right? You're talking about the worst performing government in Canadian history, down by 20 points. And they win with no new policy things and a person who didn't live in the country and had no political experience based on the story they told. And that's the thing, the power of a political campaign. You have to persuade people, right? And so that persuasion piece, what's called rhetoric in the old school, is incredibly powerful. It's something you should pay attention to. This is one of those sort of quirky things. If you do a survey of the most influential people from politics and business in the world, and you ask what one course did they all take, the most common thing that they share in their study is that they all studied rhetoric, which is rarely taught anymore. It's thought of this like old school, classical type of a thing. It's persuasive argument. And so the closest you would get is people that get into studying law, right, or political oratory, but like the notion of me being able to convince you of something. I suppose like marketing is maybe similar, right? But yeah, so that's all. I sort of absolutely reserve the right to comment on all politics. And it's really unfortunate that like people get sort of super emotional about politics, because politics is really fascinating right now, but it's not interesting if we're just yelling and talking about different characters in that. It would be super interesting if we could examine what people do, because that is really interesting. But anyways, I'm not endorsing any of their policies. I wish them all well. To be quite honest, none of the parties in our country and none of the parties in the US differ much at all, right? Their rhetoric they use to create sort of arguments in the base and stuff like that. But if you look at their voting records, so take 95% of their budget, which is military and discretion spending, They agree exactly. There's zero change. And so like the notion that like, oh, we just need to vote for this. Yeah, no. The types of things that they do, their little hot button issues are always the same. Nothing ever changes. So I don't actually believe that you're going to, like the world's coming to an end or the world's like fundamentally saved by an election. Okay, political story. Oh, and this was me pointing out that like the party used this argument and they win because they used this argument and the person said, this is not good because we're in trouble. And they were being deceptive and stuff like that and said like that I was saying that story is good. I did not say story is good. I said that story is powerful. And so you can use story for horrific ends. And in fact, every time a massive atrocity occurs, people use story to begin with, right? So if I bring you all in here and I'm like, hey, let's pick somebody from the class and let's randomly just kill them. So lock the doors and then we'll just kill somebody. We're all here together, so we'll sort of tell the cops all the same story. Nobody will ever know we did it. You'd be like, there's absolutely no way. However, if what I can do is convince you that one of the people in the room is not human, and so you're going to have stories appear, and they'll generally come through mainstream media that will talk about this other group of people. They don't even care about children. They don't even respect this. They do all these so I'm going to give you all these atrocious stories which make you think, oh, they're not humans, they're subhuman, so we can kill them. Because people don't really think you should be killing people, so you have to convince them that these people are not people, right? Happens all the time. It's terrifying, but so story is super powerful. I'm advising you to use it for good, but I do not believe, like it's a powerful tool, but it is agnostic, right? The lesson on this, by the way, that came through the academy, there was a period where, coming out of what was called the Enlightenment, where people felt if you just educate people, everything will be bliss. There'll be utopia, right? And the argument against that was that when you had the Second World War, the Nazis were probably the most educated army we've ever had, highly cultured, philosophically trained, et cetera, and they were a nightmare. And so it was like, oh, no, it turns out that education alone is not enough. There has to be some kind of morality baked into it, right? Anyways, can we do the name game? So this must be from somebody from the creativity class. I wondered about the name game because it is relevant for story, so the answer is yes. I'll put the name game into the thing today and we'll get to the name game. I'll show you what it is. People are asking about the quiz. How do you do better on the quiz and stuff like that? You're already smarter than you were before. You know what these are like. You should plan to do better. I've already printed them out. There are 7 questions. They're wonderful questions, beautiful questions. Some say the greatest question. So you're going to love it. You're going to have a great time. It's going to be fine. Okay? Yes?
Do we have to learn Sanskrit for these questions?
You do. You do. Of course you have to learn Sanskrit. Did you know that Sanskrit is the origin of the English language? One of the reasons why you don't want censorship on English is that people talk about it as if it's like from England. No, it's an emergent language. It's an open source language. And so the thing is, everywhere it's been, it's had no rules. And now coming up with all these rules to shut it down will make it less effective. Most other languages always came from one type of a source, but the root source for English is Sanskrit, the oldest we go back to. Sanskrit's beautiful. It's one of the more complicated languages to learn, though. So, yeah, but it is beautiful. Anyways, fiction and non, oh yeah, so this was, I was saying that there's a blur between fiction and nonfiction and that they're not really even easy categories. And the argument was that in science, the whole thing is that you have to avoid fiction. This is fundamentally untrue. And I'm going to talk about it a little bit right after this slide. You have to be able to tell a story or people won't be able to be convinced. So like just there's a, one of the most interesting areas to study, I find, is the history of science or the philosophy of science. And if you go and you look at the history of different scientific breakthroughs, what happens is we make the breakthrough and then it takes a long time before people will do it, right? So we learn about the germ theory of disease, and we know that it's killing moms in childbirth, and it takes a generation before people will wash their hands because people believe a thing, and it's hard to get them to believe a new thing. Very hard, right? So the open AI thing, when we have our big AI revolution now, they didn't know when it was going to take off. They were already planning their schedule for working on their next model, and it took off. Why? Because their interface was easy to use and friendly looking, and so people started using it. But it wasn't any special model. It was one in a long sequence of models, and we had all kinds of other AI available. It's just that finally, people were like, oh, AI is a thing. Yeah? So when you have any kind of a scientific breakthrough, the biggest thing that you're going to need to do is understand. If you can't explain it to people, they will not believe you. One of my sort of early experiences was I had a student come to me. So she's a geneticist, and she came and studied acting with me. And the reason she was studying, like, and then you talk to everybody like, hey, it's acting class, why are you here? And she was like, I'm a scientist and I want to learn how to be able to communicate. And she ended up winning the, what's it called, the 2-minute thesis competition or whatever. She won it nationally and stuff like that, and then became like hugely successful. And her whole thing was she understood she was working on complicated science and needed to be able to explain what she was talking about, not just like to the normies in the public, but to other scientists, right? So you need to be able to use it. I'm not saying, by the way, falsify data, but being able to tell story matters, but we'll get to that. Oh, this was interesting because a person said, when I said, what are your favorite nonfiction stories? And somebody said John 3:16. If you're not familiar with John 3:16, this is a biblical passage from the Bible. And the argument that this person made was, while the passage itself is inside of the Bible, the way that this has emerged is that in public, there's this movement so that if you go to like a sporting event, very often in like football stadiums, hockey games, you'll see people in the stands and they'll have a thing that says John 3:16. And so that's a nonfiction political thing because what those people are doing is saying, here it is in the world, and they're trying to point you at the sacred text. So that's a decent argument. I'm not certain I buy it, but that's a decent argument that that phenomenon is a nonfiction thing pointing at a sacred text. And all I mean by the sacred text is these are ones that sort of stand in a special category. And so you'd go everything from like Bible, Quran, Upanishads, like the Pali Canon, but also into things like the Confucian texts, right? These things that stand in a specialized category. So yeah, anyways, we would talk about them in a way that's different than nonfiction. And they're studied in a way that's different than nonfiction. Okay, beauty in scientific language, because this came up in terms of the notion of fiction and nonfiction. First of all, almost all, like when you go through great science work, and so if you're working in the sciences, as I said to you, if you're focusing, say, on your personal writing and you're like, oh, I'm going to study my area, here's what I will tell you. Great scientists have beauty in their work, right? Okay. I'm among those who think that science has great beauty. A scientist in his laboratory is not only a technician, he's also a child placed before natural phenomena which impress him like a fairy tale. Right? You're going to find endless descriptions of this type of stuff. There is profound beauty in mathematics. There is profound beauty in all of the sciences. The further you dig in, the more beauty you will see. And what you'll find among the scientists that sort of perform at the highest level is they all talk about the fact that they understand that when they're finding beauty is when they're at the culmination of something big. Feynman, one of the kind of famous ones on science, the beauty that is there to be found in science is much more beautiful than any one person can imagine. It is a kind of poetry. So there's a Feynman quote actually built into the walls in one of the engineering buildings. Does anybody know which one? I've walked by it a few times, but I can never remember where it. And it was like a big stone quote. And he talks about the fact that he doesn't set out in pursuit of beauty inside of his work, but when he's done his work, if beauty doesn't exist in the work, he knows that he's made errors. He knows that there's a problem. So yeah. Imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited. Imagination encircles the world. Einstein had a ton of this kind of stuff that the pursuit of science was all about, these kind of fictional and mystical and magical and aesthetic types of things. The methodology is where the precision shows up, right? You're going to find that if somebody's studying piano or guitar or chemistry, what it is how strict are you on your fundamental practice? If your fundamentals are rigorous, you can produce beautiful work. If your fundamentals are weak, your stuff is ugly. If you torture the data long enough, it will confess to anything. So this is one of the fun things. I really don't understand why the universe doesn't allow me to program all education, because the world would be a better place. And if I did program all education and the world was a better place, you would all be required to take statistics. And one of the things that you learn in statistics is that statistics is nearly impossible and it's incredibly important. And so you have mass amounts of like elections and health and all this kind of stuff is decided based on statistics, and pretty much nobody understands what they're talking about with statistics. If you study iatrogenesis, that is death by medical error, which is usually something like the third leading cause of death in any hospital. The biggest problem they've isolated is that practicing medical doctors don't understand the statistical analyses of new drugs and new conditions. And so they're supposed to stay up on the research. First of all, most of them don't read that research. They're too busy. Those that do read abstracts, and they read the little statistical thing, and they don't understand stats. So people are dying because people don't understand stats. The other part is you can make statistics say anything. And so you need to be really, really careful. And people that are, it's why if you're in like economics or psychology, why they're making you do stats, it's because it's really important to make sure that you understand what you're doing with stats and getting your stats right. But if you don't get your stats right, you can make millions of dollars because people lie about stats all of the time. Most of the news is lying about stats. Most of medicine is lying about stats. It's insane, the amount of sort of fraud that goes in there. Anyways, this is one of these great types of things. There's a great, what was the guy's name who did the TED Talks? He just died a few years ago, statistician. And he's one of the great statistical communicators of all time. And he created like a foundation to show people how to be better at stats. Stats is really important. Anyways, and then this, right? So Watson and Crick make all of the discoveries that are relevant to DNA, which is a huge set of breakthroughs, but no one could understand what they found. So what did they do? They came up with a pretty looking spiral. Like if I take a microscope and zoom way in on you, which would be alarming to you in the middle of class, so I won't do that. We don't find this, right? Like you get that that's not a thing that we find under the microscope. What's going on there is we're using beauty, we're using fiction to help you understand something, right? Because like they literally could not make this understandable to people until they made it into a pretty little diagram. Yeah? Cool. So we use fiction as a way to help explain truth all the time. Most of the beautiful pictures you'll see of space, right? Look at where this picture is coming from. They add all this color and stuff like that. They do it based on actual data, but they say for this data we're translating it to this, and so you get these gorgeous pictures of space. If you go to space, right where they took that picture, it doesn't look like that at all. We're changing it so that your brain can understand it. Okay, back to our nonfiction realm. The other one is medicine, by the way. So it's like some of the greatest sort of visuals and writing in terms of science comes in the realm of medicine. Okay, back to nonfiction story. Here's the most famous quote from what story? All right, I'm going to show you the quote, then you tell me what story it's from. Are you ready? You sure? You sure? Yes. That is Cinderella. Why are you saying, isn't that like as if it's like I'm tricking you or something? Cinderella is relevant in this class. Yeah, I set it all up. There it is. So as we get towards the end of our journey in story, the most famous quote from Cinderella, a dream is a wish your heart makes when you're fast asleep, and then it comes from this passage. How does that factor into the Cinderella story? Because we didn't really seem to talk about that aspect of Cinderella at all. And yet it's the most quoted piece. Now it's from a song, but what's going on there? Yes? You did the slow raise there. It's like,
Songs can be a really beautiful and lovely way to provide exposition information in a way that isn't tedious.
cool. I like all of that. I also think like it's an emotional expander, right? So if I'm like, I'm so in love with so-and-so, it's like, and I tell you, and like, that's fine. But if I break into song and I like sing it so well you cry, you're like, I'm getting closer. Yes?
And music inherently is a way of communicating
Yep.
with another. So even if you were two and didn't understand what all of the words meant in English, you would still understand.
Yeah, we can get it with the feeling, right? We can get you to have the appropriate feeling. That's a big thing. So music can be an assistant that way. What else? When I'm talking about fiction and nonfiction, I'm looking at this word dream. Where does that fall? Why?
Honestly, I think it lies probably somewhere in the
Don't you give me a tricky, complicated philosophical answer I can't argue with.
Well, dreams could be things that like you
Dreams, they can't come true.
and actually happen, and it could be like stuff that will never happen in your lifetime, but it's still dreams.
How do you know? You don't.
Belief in what
The dream world could be real, and this could be the thing that's fake.
you got me good.
Marijuana's legal now. We're allowed to say stuff like that. What if, like, the color blue is like the same? Yeah.
I think it depends on how you're the act of dreaming or like the I.
The act of dreaming?
Yeah. I think people kind of define it differently
Yeah.
versus oh, I have a dream of in the future.
I have a dream.
These things versus the dreams that I might not have conscious control of at night. And so
What about the dreams you don't have conscious control of during the day? What about the dreams that we don't have conscious control of that we're all dreaming right now? So dream, right, is this set of thought patterns that occur. They're going on right now too. Dreams are about suppression and about awareness. So dreams are going on all the time. You've got more dream thought going on right now than you do the thought that you're thinking. Because our brains are very big and they're very busy. And the thing you're paying attention to, that front part of your brain that's keeping you focused, is there. You get a few little distractions because your body will send distractions like, what am I going to have for dinner? I have to pee. My shoulder is itchy. This kind of stuff. This guy is boring, right? But there's all this other dream type of stuff that's actually going on. Are dreams, are they fiction or nonfiction?
Well, there's not really an author of your dreams, is there?
There is. There is an author, yes. And he's radically underpaid. I want to talk about the exploitation about dream authors. It's why the quality of dreams has been falling recently, and we need to hire some new dream authors. Who's the author of dreams?
Say, like, if like, your dreams, I guess you'd have to say your dreams are story in order for it to be nonfiction.
Although dreams get into a weird place too because they don't seem to follow a lot of the formal rules of story. So it's as if they live in some other. First of all, like I'm not going to tell you, by the way, like at the end of this, the answer is 3.14. We don't have an understanding of this, right? We dream all of the time. All of us dream all of the time. You might not remember your dreams. All of us dream all of the time, and we've been studying dreams for a long time, and we know almost nothing, right? But it does get into this really interesting place of fiction and nonfiction. Because dreams are obviously very real, right? You can have dreams that are so scary, it's really upsetting to you and messes up, like it can be damaging to your health. So what am I going to say? That's not real? That's very real, right? What does it mean if what I say is, I want you to have your, like, what is the message that Cinderella is giving us in this song? Or the lyricist is creating on Cinderella's behalf for this song. But if we were to take it as Cinderella saying this, what's she saying? Yes.
a life without unfair restrictions or the obstacles that we talked about, like the unfair injustices that Cinderella's facing at the beginning when the song plays, and all of these lyrics speak to a life without sort of that burden of unfairness.
Okay, so you said the word unfair 6 times.
I know.
Is it in there?
No.
No. So here's the deal. Here's the deal. Unfairness is part of reality. What she's doing and what Cinderella does in the story is telling us how to live in a world where unfairness is part of all day, every, like there's never been a day on earth, if we study all of history, where it was like, oh, that was a day that was fair. There's no such thing. Fairness is a concept and it's something we aim towards and something we might want to increase. But she talks about things that are impediments and stuff like that, but she talks about how to deal with it. Oh yeah, the evil people are being unfair to her,
Yeah.
or mean or whatever and stuff like that.
But
But
the lyrics are talking about the symptoms of like that you have when you're met with unfairness. Heartache.
I think that you believe that because you just said unfairness 6 times in one statement.
I know. I have to take it.
No. I'm not trying to be a dick about that. What I'm saying is that's a cool thing. When you give that explanation, you're like, unfairness, when you say it 6 times, it means a lot to you, that interpretation. I don't think you're wrong, and I think I can absolutely make that case that you're absolutely right in assuming it's that way. I'm not saying it's the only interpretation. Yes?
I think maybe they're both nonfiction and fiction because, like, they're based on reality. Like,
Oh, you're back into dreams.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, sorry. We're beyond dreams.
We're not beyond dreams.
Okay.
Though that's going to be my new acoustic song.
Because it's
Beyond dreams.
anyway, I think it's both because I think your dreams are based on reality, like what you experience during the day and everything like that. So that would be sort of a nonfiction, but they're fiction because they're so wild and they have so much different, like they're bizarre and like there's a
Sure. There's also this thing, so not that I'm endorsing this particular approach or idea. There's also this notion of like the zeitgeist or gestalt or these types of things. So if you were to read the second half of that Campbell book, where he goes into the Jungian stuff, they're a big believer that there's a series of basically primary concepts that all human beings share. And this is part of the explanation for like, why has everybody got the same stories? Why are these themes all consistent? Why do people's dreams all seem to have these different types of things, right? There are these same things that will show up across those spectra. And so it could be that what's going on there, and some people would argue, so like the Neoplatonists would argue that dreams and that zeitgeist thing you're tapping into, the collective unconscious, are more true than what you're observing daily, which is like one large set of claims. Again, I'm not saying I'm making the truth claim there. That's a philosophical and psychological school. You had your hand up.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's about, like, for me, it would be about, like, intuition and trusting your gut and just, like, appreciating, like, remembering the simple things of life.
Cool. Okay, that works. Keeps it practical. She's giving you, so the Cinderella message, right, is this thing of the power of story. So what I do is, if I want to ruin Cinderella's life, let's imagine that I come in and I say, I'm retiring. I've been cast as an evil stepsister in Cinderella, and it's my life's dream because I'm finally going to break Cinderella. Here's what I need in order to break Cinderella. I need to make her not be herself. I need to impose my narrative on her and have her live my narrative for her rather than live her narrative. Her narrative is she does what she's here to do, and she doesn't give up, right? Whereas the stepsisters are trying to tell her she's something which is not true. It's like she is not that. So there's still rules in the society where it's like, oh, you're going to go to the ball, well, you have to have the appropriate dress. You're not allowed to go in unless, like, so there's still those types of codes, but it's this false narrative type of piece. It's the notion of staying true to your story, understanding what your story is and staying true to your story, and how what people will do is try to convince you of a different reality. So if what I do is I mistreat you, right? You all come into class, it's the first day of class, and I convince you you're all terrible people and you're not working hard enough and you're never going to amount to anything in life, and you start to believe that, I've just taken you off of your actual path, right? It's a brutal thing to do to another human being, but it's something we do to one another. Yes? And the other part of it, now she's being set up in this way to do this in a way that is kind of easy, like, so if you think of like a mean, judgmental person who is cruel to you, that's kind of easy for us to conceptualize. The other part of it is you can also fall prey to this from people that are very kind. So you could have like friends or parents. So like you're whatever right now, you're like an accounting major, but you're like, no, instead I want to be a chemist. And your parents are accountants and your grandparents are accountants and your great-great-great-great-great-grandparents invented accounting. And they're like, you can't be a chemist. We've always hated the chemists. But like you were born to be a chemist. They don't want you to not be a chemist because they don't want you to follow your dream. It's because they have an idea of you and they love you. So they don't want you to change. So their desire for you to live that narrative is entirely positive, right? Now, in general practice, this is what happens as children change and have their kind of become their own beings in the world. And once you succeed in that area that you're in, then the parents are happy, unless they're like mean, right? They're happy. It's like, oh no, well, we only wanted the best for you. And now that you're happy, that's fine, right? Okay, here we go. Back to digital rebirth. Consider good and bad elements of your digital story. General points to consider. Digital literacy. So what you want to be able to do, because your story is out in the world, is you want to demonstrate digital literacy, meaning the first thing I'm looking for if I'm going to look you up is not any kind of content at all, right? It's not a big deal to me if you prefer vanilla ice cream to chocolate ice cream, though that's insane because chocolate ice cream is the best. I don't really care. What I care is, does it look like you have no concept of what's going on in the digital realm? And so it's digital literacy. So you will see people that will do things like they're posting TikToks or they're doing Reels or whatever, and it's like they're just good, right? So I might not like the like it's like my kind of music or my kind of whatever, but you can tell the person is kind of like, oh, they're good. They're good at expressing themselves. So you want to be aware that being digitally literate is more important than any other literacy. This is a major change that people are not aware of. Literacy is important. Numeracy is important. Digital literacy is the primary literacy today. So you want to demonstrate that. Genre. So you also want to know about the genre of the world that you're in, because it's not that I can give you guidelines for how to show up digitally. You want to show up digitally in a way that makes sense. So architecture, if you're going into architecture or you're going into design, those types of things, you need to have these kind of minimalist, super attention to detail, elegant consideration of aesthetics, or they will not speak to you. If I walk in to try and get into architecture school or design school or any of that stuff, and I am dressed like this, they will have me escorted out of the building for dressing like this. There's just no way. It's offensive to them because they're obsessed with design, and it needs to be absolutely everywhere. If you use that kind of design in engineering, exact same response. They will have you escorted from the building. Engineers are all about function, mass amounts of information. Again, I think I told you this before. Go look at the research posters whenever engineering puts them up. They are aggressively ugly, right? Like you couldn't, if you looked at it and said like, I got to try and make something uglier, I couldn't do it. And this is award-winning research because they don't care about aesthetics, they care about mass information, right? So know your genre. You can have a situation where heavy-duty, over-aesthetic approaches to stuff actually doesn't land with your audience, right? So like with my folks in my sort of creative class, the AI and games class, if you want to make it in the movies, you've got to go and socialize with people and you got to dress fancy and do cocktail parties. If you want to make it in games, they hate that. They don't like social events, and generally the kind of costume is a t-shirt, probably with a mustard stain on it, and gray track pants. All they care about is the work. The movie people, all they care about are the social events. It's just very different types of domains. So in your writing, in your presentation of yourself, be aware of your genre, right? And when I say that, just take a look at where you want to go. So if you're wanting to work at a big law firm, you're wanting to work in tech, go and look at what the main places are and understand, oh, there's a genre here. So I'm going to start like making sure that I'm crafting my stuff so I look like I fit in. The other thing, by the way, is if their genre is totally not you, you might want to ask, oh, maybe I'm not going to enjoy this. Audience. Most online people aren't people. So remember when you're communicating digitally that most online people are not people. Most online communication is now just bots. There's very few people out there, and most of the people that are online do not post, right? More than 90% of the people that are online do not post. They just look at what's there. Now, here's the big hack that people miss all of the time and that you really, really, really want to take to heart. If you want to know how the world runs, and you really want to get manipulative about the way that you deal with your digital presence, understand that the most important group of people on the planet are the insurance people. Why? First, insurance is all derived off of making money off of understanding like longevity, so the life of a person, but also lives of companies, lives of individual shipments, etc. So this university, a lot of what we do, a lot of the things that you sign, a lot of the things you click through on when you're talking about, are you going to distribute this? Do you have the copyright? All of that is not because like they're ethical. It's because the insurance company tells them what they have to do to keep insured. Because if they can't insure the university, we're closed down immediately. You've got a big conflict going on in the Middle East right now, and you hear about the Gulf of Hormuz, the Strait of Hormuz, Strait of Hormuz. It's not about the bombs, it's about the insurance companies. They won't insure the ships. If you don't insure the ships, global oil stops. We will see famine because of that, and it's the insurance stuff that is the big deal. So here's how this type of stuff works. If I want to employ you at my company, right? My company that sells only chocolate ice cream. You're like, well, I too like chocolate ice cream. And then you say to me, but I like vanilla better. I'm like, well, you're insane, but you can probably still work here. Here's where the problem comes in. This came up, and it's come up recently. So in the political sphere, you saw these things where there were high-profile deaths. And then you had people go publicly onto social media and celebrate the deaths of other people. Now, the problem with that, first of all, morally, good heavens, you're a dreadful human being, and I hope you find your way back. But regardless, by the way, of who, celebrating death is weird. Beyond weird. It's morally repugnant. However, the real issue that you've got is I can't insure you if you're publicly declaring your support for violence. Because now what happens is if violence happens at my workplace, I can be sued and I can't say I don't support violence in the workplace. And I will lose my entire institution. So you will never work if you are publishing stuff like that online. Ever, right? And the reason is the insurance companies. So people think like, oh, the type of stuff I'm posting and all this kind of stuff, the type of stuff you think is bad is not bad. The type of stuff that you want to worry about is stuff that social media is almost designed to get you to do, right? So if it's for like a big company, so one of the really cool companies, I'm going to get a report on you. It's not like I'm asking specific questions, and it's going to give me rankings, and it's going to tell me whether I can insure you or not. And if you are really sort of out there on social media, I can't insure you because you're unstable. And I can't risk you being unstable while you work for me, right? Like you're at my company, I'm just there trying to sell chocolate ice cream, and you're like, I come into the office and it's like, yeah, there's a bunch of lawyers and police here because you apparently were calling for the death of people yesterday in social media, so now I'm losing my company. Now, if I didn't know you had done that, and I can show that I knew you had done that, I keep my company. If I hired you and you had this stuff posted publicly before coming to the company, I'm done. My company is gone. So your audience are insurance people. Okay? Now, here's the best way to do social media, said the super old guy to all the young people who do it way better than I do, but here's how to do it well. You want to understand that in network culture, it is no longer powerful to have information, it's how you transmit information. So you need to decide whether you want to be destructive or generative. And so when you're going from broadcast to network, broadcast, right, is that all that happens is the major media companies tell you information, you take in the information, and that's it. In the world you live in, right, like the president of the United States right now could be saying something he probably is saying something online, he almost always is. You can literally respond to him directly, like right now from here, right? Which would be hilarious, actually. Like if you were not paying attention and I was asking you a question, I'm like, what the hell are you doing? It's like, I'm responding to the president. That's incredible, right? It's an extraordinary thing that we can do that. Here's the deal. If what you want to do is help yourself, be generative rather than destructive. So we've gone through a short period in the early phases of the internet where people have sort of monetized being highly critical. That's not a good long-term strategy. So be generative. Here's what that means. You're interested in whatever. You're interested in medicine. You're interested in engineering. So go to an event, right, that's related to the field you want to be in, and just post a thing about going to the event and thanking the organizers. What are you doing? You're being generative, meaning you're taking your ability as a social media person and you're boosting a signal of something you like. So you've got a sports team you like, boost their signal. Your friend is in a show, boost the signal. Your group did a great project, boost the signal. So all of a sudden what happens is when I look at you, it's like, oh, this is a person who is using their ability to be on the platforms to boost other people's signals. right? Rather than you're going to go and attack all kinds of things, right? Like whatever movie is coming out next and you've got a hot take, no one cares. And we don't need any of those hot takes. What you want is nonstop signal boosting. Yes? Does it make sense? Okay, here we go. So we want to think about delete and change, because when I'm saying digital renaissance, and we're also understanding that we can't ever get rid of stuff we've posted, it's permanent. However, there is an approach, right? So let's say that I'm like growing up, and let's imagine I looked like this my entire life. So I'm a little child and I'm bald like Charlie Brown. You know the old Charlie Brown character? And so like, and they put me on the football team, and every time I go to kick the football, they pull the football away. And my life is just horrible. So all of my social media posts are about the absolute unfairness of being bald, right? And I say that hair people should be killed, right? Well, if all of a sudden I stop doing that and kind of begin behaving in a different way, that's actually a good thing. Because we all can be super emotional about certain types of things. We all can be really passionate about things, and particularly when we're younger, et cetera. And so if what happens is, all of a sudden I notice what is called a renaissance or a rebirth, which is I see a fundamental change in your behavior. What it says is, oh, this person has become aware, they've become digitally literate, and they now understand how to be in the world. So what you do is you go in, I go in, and I delete all of my posts where I mock people with hair, and I delete all of my posts where I say we need to round up the hairy people and execute them all, right? And then what happens is people can go and they can dig all that kind of stuff out, but what'll happen is if you ask me that question in a court of law or on a political campaign or a job interview, you could say, I was super crazy about that kind of stuff when I was young. I completely changed, and I got rid of those posts. And what will happen is the evidence will be there that I have changed my position, right? So here's how it works. If it doesn't go like that, what happens is I get elected to political office, right? And I'm in power, and I'm like, hey, how's everybody? And it's like, hey, we just found all of these posts that say you want to kill everybody who has hair, and most of the population has hair. And I'm like, yeah, I deleted those. And they're like, yeah, but you deleted those like 5 minutes ago. Then I'm in trouble, because now what it is I deleted them only because I was forced to, not because I had a rebirth. Like there's this fascinating, like one of my favorite cases of this, there's a woman called Crystal Ball, which is kind of a wild name to have. She's like an online news person, and she was a Bernie Sanders person, so like quite left in the Democrat Party. She's now a news person. She was an MSNBC person. She ran for Congress, and they found some pictures of her in university where she was in kind of like dominatrix thing, and her boyfriend had a leash on. Now, it was not revealing stuff or anything like that, but they were at a Halloween party, and like the dude, he was just dressed normal. He just had a collar on like a leash, right? So, and they revealed this to make her lose the campaign. And she came out and she said, we all have grown up in the digital age, which means there's photographs that all of us have that maybe we're not the most proud of, but I refuse to be shamed by this because it was a Halloween party and a joke, so get over it. And I thought, there's a genius kind of contemporary person, right? Because when you grow up in social media and you grow up with cameras going off nonstop, there's going to be potentially all kinds of things there that you might not have wanted to post or anything like that. So that's fine. So you don't need to worry about like, oh, what if, I can never post anything, or I'm worried about the past or anything like that. Understand that what you want to see is at a certain point, if your social media, like if your digital profile begins to look like you know what you're doing, that's profoundly valuable. It's also a pretty rare commodity. Okay. Next thing I would consider in a digital renaissance is aggregate your CV. So take your CV, and what I mean by this is think of your CV as your full 5-paragraph thing. So in your full 5-paragraph vision, it might be that you're going to be a neurosurgeon. Now, you're not a neurosurgeon yet, but that's only because it's yet, because you've already written the 5-paragraph story, right? And so what you want to do is you want to think, okay, what are the things that I have that are on my CV? That's fine. But what are all the things that I want represented as part of my character, and are they represented? So social media, you're showing up there, right? So people will have like, maybe they've got TikTok accounts, Instagram accounts, Pinterest, who knows what, right? And so you just use whatever the things are for whatever's useful at any given time. Look at it as if you're looking at it from somebody from the outside and realize, oh, wait a minute, there's this one aspect of like my work and my personality that's super important that's nowhere in my social media. Get it in there, right? Get visuals in there that represent who you are. Understand, these things are not free because they're giving them away. They are theft devices. They're stealing your data, and anybody who uses them for anything other than business is viewed as an idiot. The people that designed these things view you as an idiot unless you're using these things for your own purposes, which is 10% of the population, right? So if you're just thinking, oh, I just want to use it for fun, that's fine. You're an idiot. They're not fun. They're stealing your data. They're following you everywhere they go. They know when you poo, right? And they care about that, which is weird because they're weird, right? Or you grab control of this, and what happens is, oh, here's a person that has social media, and they're boosting positive things and helping others around them. Let's hire that person. Yes? Yes. Okay. Continuous edit without comment. So I love this song lyric that comes from, I think, the country and western tradition, which is, Mama always told me, don't fight anybody ugly, they got nothing to lose. You want to keep that in mind. So you're going to have your digital profile, and you're going to need to understand you will need to continuously edit, but you're going to edit without comment. So let us have an example. Early in my political career, you come and work for my campaign, and you become completely convinced because of my powerful rhetoric that we need to probably get rid of all people that have hair because they're evil and they've led to all of the problems in the world, and that the bald really need to be put in charge of everything. But then it turns out you're like, I think I better change my mind. I think this guy's insane. Just delete the stuff there. Don't get into commenting. So you've got something posted on your thing, and it's like whoever, famous pop star or something like that, you're at a great thing, you love them, they're your favorite singer, you post about their lyrics and all that kind of stuff like that, and then it turns out they're in like some huge scandal. Just delete. Don't feel the need to say, let me give a political statement on why I've deleted the whole, because the heat around those things is massive. You don't want to look like an idiot, which is the person that weighs in immediately without further information. You want it to just get off your profile. And then if someone asks you in a job interview or in a political interview, why did you delete your support for this type of a person, just say, I was really upset by a lot of what was being said at that time. I'm still speechless about it. It's terrible. And so I just really felt that I needed to take time to reflect. You don't have to take responsibility for a toxic fight, right? The fighting that goes on online can wipe out your career for no reason. Yes? So you do not ever want to be an early adopter of a movement, right? The political movement comes out, all of a sudden, I've convinced everybody in here, from now on, you need to get a Charlie Brown icon and put it in your profile to show your support for bald oppression, right? If you're like among the first people to do that, everyone thinks you're an idiot. So wait, right? And then if 90% of the population does it, go like, well, I'll just do it to go along. I don't want to get into trouble. I think this guy's probably going to kill us all, but whatever, I got to fit in. But just don't be the early adopter. Yes? Okay. Exercise, digital rebirth renaissance. What are some examples of good or bad things to post? Yep.
I don't know, maybe post about what you're passionate about.
What if you're passionate about the slaughter of innocent children?
That would not be great.
I mean, maybe on Reddit. There's probably like a subreddit for like, I too am passionate. Cool. I think absolutely, right? In a sense, you'd like passion to be driving almost everything you post. The trick about networking is you get amplification, and so pushing into the domain that you want, so we're like focusing exclusively on what you're passionate about, should yield bigger results. Campbell, by the way, argues that within the story tradition, that's why this type of thing works, though there is a quibble I will have, which is with the word passion. So we just want to be a little bit careful because passion from passio is uncontrollable emotion. And so uncontrollable emotion is also a little bit, right? It's like not necessarily good. We like controlled emotion. So if I'm passionate about music, but then I actually really, really practice, then my music is great. If I'm passionate about music, but I don't practice, I'm just like, bah! Like it's like you're out of control, right? Yes?
I was just going to say, an example of a bad thing to post
Yeah.
would be a thing that you're not comfortable with the repercussions of. So I think there is like a time and a place for a bunch of different people that can post inflammatory things, but that's also something that they've signed up for, and that's their like, that's how they're doing their work. So I think that as long as you're comfortable with the fallout, either good or bad,
Yeah.
of the content,
Yeah.
then it's a good
I think the challenge with that, I think you're absolutely 100% right. And I think the challenge in that domain is what's called the network effect. So if I post online, I love chocolate ice cream, there will be many, many, many people that will say horrendous things about that, and there will be some percentage of the population that would like to kill me immediately. Because you're posting at scale. So you're dealing with people that are insane, right? And so the blowback is unlike anything we've ever seen. So staying generative keeps you in a place where, however, there are people that want to be incendiary and that are really good at it, for one, like they're like literal provocateurs. That's a tough road to hoe, but there are people that do it, right? And are quite good at it, so that's totally cool. I'm counseling people basically to be, don't do this unless you choose to do it, right? Because there are people that are good at it, people that are bad at it, and you can make a whole career doing that. But yeah, the repercussion part is, like repercussion can be really profound, and I think that one of the things people don't understand is it's not repercussion of what people are going to say, it's the repercussion you're never going to know about, which is if you're doing that kind of stuff online, no one's going to touch you hiring-wise because they can't have that as part of their network, right? Like we're all networked now, and so if I'm like, say like I teach you this class and it's like your favorite class ever, but then right at the end of the class, I'm like, okay, everybody, I'm going to go for spring break now, and what I always like to do in spring break is have a few dogs. And by dogs, I mean puppies, because I eat puppies. You're like, oh my God. And you've posted all this type of stuff, and it's like, didn't you take classes with that guy? That guy's like eating puppies. And I'm like on Facebook eating puppies. He's like, I've really messed you up because we're connected, right? And so the network piece is really, really, really tricky, right? And particularly because people will use this against you if you're advocating for things and stuff like that. It can undermine all kinds of stuff. So yeah, it's tricky. Yes, yes.
An example of a good thing, and this might be particular to my experience, when I was in acting school like 10 years ago, our business teacher, one of the things that she would ask us every week is, what's new and exciting in your life?
Yep.
Because all of our social medias were very public, because that's how you got
Yep.
noticed. And so you have to be able to tell the story of who you were
Yep.
and what was new and exciting about you, not
Yep.
necessarily the world, but what was interesting and special and unique about you.
Yep.
So like we practiced on how to post and how to create like
Yep.
a story of who we are.
Yep.
In our social media that is something that's palatable, something that's memorable, and something that is engaging with
Yeah.
people beyond just
The number one thing for getting a movie role now, TV role, movie role, or a recording contract is number of followers.
that's how they decide when they
And you're not going to get followers based on anything negative. So it's tricky, right? And it's a thing to be aware of. At the high level of this, because I'm just giving you the kind of intro type of a level, the high level, what you'll see is the people with really good consultants and that really know what they're doing, they'll go out and give an interview, and the way that they give the interview, you're like, oh, they understand how this can be cut for clips for all the different types of outlets that they would want. Like Selena Gomez is very good at that. right? And so what you'll look at, like the people that are hugely successful, they rarely say things that are going to get them get them caught into political debates and stuff like that. Political debates tend to happen to people that are not really in the big roles or are past their prime because they're trying to get attention in the only way they can. Okay, let me give you this one in case because like one of the things we think of with social stuff is political, right? So if you were to come to me and say, Patrick, help me clean up all of my type of posting stuff to help me, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to look at your posts, and if you have the logo for any political party in the country, right, because you're supporting them in the election, I'm going to tell you to delete it. Here's the exception. If you're working for that party, that's actually a strength then. You don't advertise your politics because if you're giving away your vote before there's a vote, you look like an idiot. And so if you want to support a political party, they're going to be really happy to have you helping them. It helps them more if you look like you're a neutral player. So you don't give away free brand, right? So just think of it as audience. So you want your audience, want maximum audience. Maximum audience is if I go online and say chocolate ice cream is superior to all other forms of ice cream, I'm reducing my appeal because some people don't believe that, right? What I could say is, I love ice cream. That's fine because I'm talking about me, right? And so if what you want is super heavy-duty, powerful plays, and the thing is, all of your issues in your 5-paragraph story should harmonize with the way that you would work politically anyways. Make sense? Cool. Again, there are things like joining the young conservatives, the young NDP, the young, if you do that, that's different. Now you're in the game, and so it's part of the professional work, makes perfect sense. And to be clear, working for any of those parties is also a strength from the perspective of the other parties. It's a really important thing to remember that inside of there was this really sort of cool thing that happened. It was one of the big summits that happened in Europe last month. Anyways, so last month they've got a big thing in Europe, and Trump is there, and he's given a speech. And Gavin Newsom is there. I don't know if you know who these people are. You know who Trump is probably. Gavin Newsom is the governor of California and kind of one of the favorites to be the Democratic nominee to beat like the Republicans in the next election. And they fight all of the time. And so Trump is giving a speech, and he's mocking Newsom from the podium while he's giving a speech. And then Newsom is mocking Trump. And then people said, but it didn't make any sense because we saw them backstage talking to each other and laughing and having a good time. So my dad worked in politics his entire life. That's why I've got a sort of interest in this type of stuff. This is what politics is. So Trump and Mamdani get along super well. And Mamdani says Trump is a fascist, and Trump says Mamdani is a communist, but they totally get along, right? People that work in politics respect other people that work in politics. They don't respect voters that give away their votes. They like good quality politics, and most politicians hang out with other politicians. The most sort of intense fighting you see politically is internal to a party because they're competing for more power inside of the party, but they all get along, they date each other, they marry each other, blah, 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 blah. So the types of fights that you see is all external. So it's no big deal. You can work for a political campaign. It's a positive. The trick is you don't give away, oh, I don't think for myself. I just vote for this team whatever color because of that. That's all. The name game. So the creativity people I taught this to before, I've done this, I do it with the public speaking stuff all the time. This is another core piece of your story, and some people are asking for it, so we'll do it. Here we go. You ready? It's very easy. Hello. 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 You suck at this. Hello. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're looking at something that has to do with using your voice. Many of you don't use your voice all that often, and because everybody's going to be saying this at the same time, you don't need to worry about people hearing your voice. So take advantage of using your voice. Now, here's the thing that happens. You are what you repeatedly do, remember? So one of the things that is challenging if we work on somebody with their voice is if what you do is train your voice to be like this, you're always going to be too quiet because you're training your voice to be quiet. You can't then decide to be heard because your literal sort of muscles are trained to be super quiet. And so now nobody can hear you when you speak. So it's fine if you got a microphone, but if you don't have a microphone, it's a problem. So we want to just experiment with saying hello full voice. The way to do that is to basically like look here as if you're aiming your voice here, or like look at the top of my head and say hello to the top of my head, right? You don't need, so speaking at the people is important. Some people don't like eye contact, so that's fine. Look at the top of the person's head. You're going to say hello. 1, 2, 3.
Hello.
Okay, louder. 1, 2, 3.
Hello.
Good. 1, 2, 3.
Hello.
Cool. Now here's the way you want to do louder. Don't do it like this where you're pushing. I'm really excited. No, you're not. What you do is say hello. So you use the space to make your voice naturally adjust to what is necessary. Okay? So when I want you to say hello, you just look here and say hello there. Like you wouldn't turn to the person beside you and go, hello, right? Which I do sometimes because I'm talking like this to you now, and people come up after class and they're like, can I talk to you? And I'm like, yes! And it's like, because I haven't readjusted my voice to the distance. Now, why is the first word you say to somebody when you're introduced hello? Opens up a friendly environment? Wow! Hello, I am here to kill you. So, hi is for losers. Hello, hello. So, here's what's going on. Go and watch any type of YouTube video you can find or something like that where a Scottish person is speaking. All right? For the first like 30 seconds, you're like, I have no idea what this person is saying, and then all of a sudden it will make sense to you. What happens is each voice that we hear, our ear tunes to that voice. So you say hello because you're giving 2 syllables and you're ending on an O, which is the most resonant vowel. So I'm tuning your ear to my voice. So I say hello. So what happens is the person listening to you now understands your voice so that the information that comes after it, they're going to understand. Yes? We're going to say hello one more time. 1, 2, 3.
Hello.
Cool. This is what you're going to say next. Right? Because you're meeting people, you know there's going to be 3 parts to this. You're going to say, my name is. Right? 1, 2, 3, go.
My name is.
That's not on there. That's the next part. That's the next part.
Okay, I won't skip parts.
So I just want to say you were wrong. It's not a friendly place. It's an aggressive place because Avalon is taking it all over by skipping a slide ahead. My name is. So what you're doing now is it's an introduction. First part is you've helped me to understand you, right? You've opened up the thing. You've opened up the world. There's your introduction. Now you just wrote a contract. You just laid out a plan. You just set out on a journey. The deal is you made a deal with me. The deal is you're going to deliver your name. Here's the name. It's not single name only, Avalon.
So many syllables in that.
So what's going to happen is you're going to give first and last, and the last you really, 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 really want to push the final syllable. So in my last name is bad for this. My last name is Finn, F-I-N-N. So it's like Finn, it's tiny, right? So I've got to kind of push as hard as I can. Here's why. For the ear to hear this and for the mind to hold it, I need to close the expression of information. And so if I go, hello, my name is, and then I give the name, and I'm strong with that final sound, it drops as a chunk of information to the person. The tradition in Canada is to do the exact opposite. I go, hello, my name is Patrick Finn, because I'm apologizing for being Canadian and upsetting you. And like a lot of people do this, and the reason they do it is they're being polite. So it's not bad or anything like that. It's just that no one who knows who you are. And so they say, I'm sorry, I didn't get your name. And you say it again. And they ask for it again. And then they just pretend they heard what you said. And they never remember you because you were being polite. So instead, what you're going to do is you're going to say, hello, my name is Patrick Finn. And I'm going to end strong because that's what's going to make them remember. Yes? So let's do this. Say your full name. Now look, if your name is like 9 things long, it's also good. It's also cool. You have to end on that strong last syllable. Yes? Here we go. You're not going to say Patrick Finn. You're going to insert your name, your first name, and your last name. Yes? 1, 2, 3, go. Okay, so that was fucking terrible. Okay, I was going to apologize for swearing, but that really I needed to, yeah, that was dreadful. So hopefully you heard how dreadful that was, right? Yes, because like you started strong, you were good on hello, then it was like decidedly mediocre, and then it was just a catastrophe, right? Like I don't want to know you anymore. And I know you, you're wonderful people, but that was terrible. So the strongest thing needs to be that final syllable, right? Look, so if we do this on the cog-sci way, here's what you're telling me. If you drop that final syllable, it means you're uncertain and you cannot be trusted, right? I want to be able to trust you. If you're doubting yourself, I can't trust you. You got to hit that final syllable. And I got that that end. That's a tough one, right? Some of you have stronger endings. It's going to be easier for you. But you can't drop all of the energy when it comes to your name. Hello? My name is... What? That's like you're a band, you come out and you play your hit song and then just like go through like back catalog stuff for the rest of the concert. It's like, what the hell is going on here? What?
Good question.
Yep.
For instance, my last name is Bothwell.
Yeah.
But it's Bothwell, not Bothwell. So should you change it to Bothwell?
You just want to, the final sound is all. It doesn't matter the sort of the syllabic, it's the final sound. Yes? Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Hello, my name is Adrian.
Okay, that was mediocre. Now, mediocre is significantly better than average. Let's try one more time, okay? Don't look at me because you'll be thinking of stuff like that. Just look at the board and say your name, right? Hello, and here's what we're going to do. Hello, my name is, and then the name. Because that's one of the other things you're doing is you're going all in one little bland thing. And what you want to do is understand that people like parse information. Hello, right? I don't go, hello, my name is Patrick Finn, right? Hello, my name is Patrick Finn. No, hello, my name is Patrick Finn. It's a three-parter. 1, 2, 3. Yes? 1, 2, 3, go.
Hello, my name is Adrian.
That was the best one so far, right? We're getting close. This, like, I obsess over this because it's insane that people don't know how to say their name, right? So the deal is, you're like at a conference presenting your research, or you're meeting a prof, or a cop just pulled you over and they've got their gun out. You want to be able to give your name appropriately. You want to be able to be heard. Or like you just met the person you want to marry or whatever. Like you want to be able to say your name. Yes? It's a hugely important thing. And the other thing is we know that if you go in for a job interview, most of their judgment of you happens in the first 30 seconds. Guess what's happening in the first 30 seconds? I show you that I can introduce, I make a contract, and then I come through with it, and you've got the name. You have the job right there, right? Whereas if you drop the ending of your name, you're spending the rest of the time with them making up for the fact that you demonstrated insecurity. And I'm not trying to be mean to you. We do this because we're trying to be polite. We don't want to be in your face. But just remember this as part of your story. Okay, cool. Having a 5-paragraph story is the as if you run in daily life. So here's now the as if part of this. Let's just do it with hello just because it'll be easier. So now just say hello. Hello?
Hello.
Come on. Don't do that. Don't say a mediocre hello. You're training yourself to say a mediocre hello, right? You'd be like, well, I think I want to marry them. I mean, they're perfect in every way, but mediocre hello. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Hello.
Good. Okay, cool. Now, the as if from the acting type of a world is that what happens is the emotion that we have or the energy that we have can come through in what we say. All right? So let's imagine now that I am the school bully from your school when you were younger, right? And I have just arrived. Here I am, the bully that was totally mean to you in grade school. You hate my guts. Yes? Imagine that. Now, say hello. 1, 2, 3.
Hello.
Cool. So you say the same word, but the as if is, it's as if you hate my guts. Right? Here's a different magic as if. This is your long-lost grandma who's like the best and who makes the best cookies. And she just lost because like you were at the mall and grandma gets lost at the mall. And then you see her again. You get to see grandma's face again. 1, 2, 3, go.
Hello.
Cool. So what happens and what acting work does, right? This is what's called intention work, all these, or you can do it from method or classical. The deal is when we say words, we can tell how you feel through the words, right? Lots of people can play musical notes. Some people can play musical notes in ways where stuff is being conveyed through those notes. Lots of people say words. Everybody conveys how they're feeling, but you can do it in different types of ways. If you've got a 5-paragraph story, if you know who you are, I can tell in the way you speak. So if you think of the third example from a personal story, if my personal story is I'm going to medical school, I'm going to be a doctor, I'm a neurosurgeon, right? Like I'm writing my vision that way, and I'm going to go in and have a meeting because I need to get some kind of internship in a lab, or I got to get into medical school. What I do is, my magical as if is I'm a doctor. And I have that in my head while I say, hello, my name is Patrick Finn. Because if what's in your head is, I'm not good enough, they're never going to let me in. What if they find out I called for the killing of all people with hair? If you have that doubt, I can hear it in your voice. Right? Like, that's the whole damn study of acting. We can tell what you're feeling through the words that you say. So it's not just that you want to say them, it's that you want to understand having something like, if I come up to you and I say, oh, hello, I'm so excited to see you. You're like, no, you're not. I can tell you're not excited to see me, even though you're saying you're excited to see me. But what I can do is I can actually be excited to see you, and then I would be telling the truth. So you want to be able to change, right? Have your sort of emotion be on the right track. The best way to do that is have your actual 5-paragraph story. If you know who you are, when you speak, it will come through in how you speak. Yes? Like, one of the things that people sort of don't really understand is that just because maybe you don't pay attention to this stuff doesn't mean that people who are good at language don't know, right? Like, you can say, like, you can have a couple of people playing music, right? And they're playing the same notes. People that know what they're talking about with music can say, like, that one person is good and they are trained, and that other person is not good. They can tell right away. It's the same thing with language for people that are good at language, which is most people that are going to do things like interviewing you. And so I don't need you to talk about anything. I just need you to talk, and I can tell by the way you speak what kind of person you are. Yes? So having that speech will help you. Consider, if story is the most powerful form of IT, what are the benefits and costs of such power? I'm going to get close to running out of time. Let's go to this because I want to make sure that I cover this. So it's easy for us to talk about costs and benefits of story in terms of things like I tell you a story where I convince all of you that you're wonderful people and you should take it easy on yourselves and not be so brutal on yourselves at the end of term. It's really, really difficult time at the end of term. You'd be like, that was a good use of story that he did there. I can almost forgive him for wanting to kill all the people with hair, right? So I've used story in a positive way, but I could also use story in a terrible way and say, like, did you know that all the people that are in that class beside us are like dreadful and we should kill them? You'd be like, oh, I can't believe we killed all those people. That's terrible, but like he told us that story. So that's easy for us to understand. The bigger one is the complexity problem. Where you want to sort of question the power of story is, in order for us to tell a story, we have to simplify. Probably the easiest place for us to see something like this is we'll see like a great novel we like made into a film. And it's like we might even like the film, but it's got to be an oversimplification because there's so much to a novel. But the bigger thing is reality is complex. And so the example I've got here, Factorio, which is kind of a famous thing, if you're into this game and you're good at this game, it's one of the top things that will get you hired in tech. And I was thinking about it because there was an interview with Elon Musk about a year ago where he was talking about the greatest challenge that they have in kind of structuring the United States, and that is that we talk about founders and ideas and concepts and things like that, and we don't understand that the really big achievements are in the complexity of the factory, of the entire process. complexity doesn't work well in stories, and so we oversimplify, right? So we look at history and we say, the Second World War was all about how bad Hitler was. And it's like, and he was a dreadful dude, but it's like, that's an oversimplification. There's a lot of information there, but if we tell a story, we simplify it so that the story is really powerful. But the problem is if we oversimplify, we might be training people to misunderstand complexity. And that is a major problem. The next one is the villain problem. This is a major problem. We make lots of movies about villains, and we have lots of famous movies about villains, and at the beginning of the class, we talked about some of the famous villains. Here's the reality, and it's not a reality I like. In fact, it's maybe one of my least favorite realities. Actual villains in the world are so much more evil than the villains that we have in the arts that it leads people to assume that there aren't people that are that bad, right? The people like international law enforcement and cops and things like that, investigators that examine the cases of people that are really bad, the things that these people do are so bad, those people have to go into therapy. Some of them are never well again. Some of them can only last a few weeks in those jobs. There are people out there that are very, very bad. And so we can watch Heath Ledger and go like, oh, cool Joker, he's bad. No, he's not. It's an oversimplification. And similarly, the notion of the hero, what's called the Superman problem. Superman comes to Earth, he's like stronger than anybody, he can swim better. It's an oversimplification of what true goodness or heroism or what a truly good life would be, right? And so we can talk about the power of story, and it is absolutely powerful. We want to remember that we're using a technology that benefits from concentrated information, but it can be an oversimplification, right? Now, you can unpack that, right? Just like we did with the Cinderella example, which is like, here's the example, and then you start to listen to everybody, and we begin adding all kinds of layers of complexity to it because it's like, oh, there's more ways to understand this, but these are central problems of story, okay? We're out of time, I guess? I was just kidding about killing all the people with hair. Just saying. Okay, thanks, everybody. I'll see you next time. There are classes.